Welcome to the Career Refresh Podcast. I'm your host, Jill Griffin. I'm a former media and marketing executive turned career strategist and executive coach. I spent my career working my way up and through the ranks of global organizations and startups, and today I show others how to do the same. Join me each week as we discuss the strategies and actionable steps to leverage your strengths, increase your confidence, and develop your career well-being. Ready? Let's do it. Hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Jill Griffin. This week, I am introducing you to a friend and client of mine, Amy Kimball. Amy is a two-time entrepreneur and the founder of a new line of innerwear clothing called Mamie Lou. Amy has this incredibly diverse background, living in Cork, Ireland, Los Angeles, New York City, New England, and Charleston, South Carolina. All of these living experiences have given her such an understanding and appreciating of different environments, cultures, and distinctive points of view, and also varied styles. Her career has been as diverse as the places she's lived. She has worked in television publicity, digital marketing, events, and in this episode, we talk about what it's like going from an employee to launching her own events company, which, by the way, was ridiculously successful, and then pivoting again during the pandemic because the events industry was completely shut down, and how finding time in that hiatus to really reconnect with some of the creative exercises and the things that she loved to do. She found a hidden passion for sewing. This led her to create the innerwear garment that her personally had been searching for. She thought that if she was looking for this, then other women were probably looking for something like this too. Amy and I discussed how she thought through the transition of her career, the realities to building your own business, and how networking is key. And most importantly, if you've been listening for a while, you know me, it's about mindset, how Amy managed her mind. So listen in, we have a lot of laughs, and I know you're going to benefit from the key takeaways. And as always, let me know what you think. Reach out to me on social media or email me at hello@jillgriffincoaching.com. I'll put all of that in the show notes along with how to find Amy and check out her brand, Mamie Lou.
Hey, Amy, it's so good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Jill. It's very exciting.
So why don't I have you introduce yourself to everyone and tell everyone what you're doing these days?
Well, my name is Amy Kimball, and I have just recently launched a new clothing line. I'm calling it Innerwear. I'm calling it Styling Foundation Pieces, and it is a very exciting time for me. It's a brand new venture, and so far, so good.
So exciting. And for full disclosure, everyone, I own 3 pieces now.
And for full disclosure, everyone, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So there we go.
Well, thank you for that. All right, we're going to get into your story today, but I always like to go back. So tell everyone, what did you think you wanted to be when you grew up?
Well, I wanted to be an actress, a singer, a dancer. I wanted to do all those things. Then I wanted to be a teacher. So I guess I just wanted to perform.
I was going to say, you're actually doing all of those things now.
At the end of the day, it all comes full circle. In weird ways.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So tell us some of your, with doing all of that, like what were some of your childhood hobbies that led to, in the last 2 years, you taught yourself how to sew. I mean, it's pretty amazing, the transformation you've made. So tell us about also some of those early hobbies.
Well, it's funny because I look back and I was thinking about this the other day, and I don't see anything that relates to what I'm doing now to when I was a kid. I mean, obviously I loved, the creative sphere, and I loved painting, and I loved performing, and we were probably a little bit more on an athletic track than an artistic track as kids. But I did love to do gymnastics, and we did our dance class and all that kind of fun stuff, just to have outlets. What I'm doing now, I mean, I guess there's such a long evolution to where I am. And if you had asked me even 2 years ago if I would be doing this would not come in the top 10. It just wouldn't. I wouldn't even think that I had this in me. And I look back, and it's my mother's mother was an unbelievable, what do you call it? I don't even know. Sewer, tailor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she was very, very talented, and she did give me a sewing, like her sewing machine. I mean, probably 20 years ago, and I was like, I'm going to learn how to sew. And it was so hard. And I lugged that thing around forever. And then finally I just said, I'm just never going to do this. I'm not good at it. I'm never going to do it. And I got rid of it. And so I guess she was probably trying to plant that seed a long time ago, but I didn't pick up what she was putting down. So,
okay. So, you're born and raised in the Boston area. Is that correct?
Yeah. Massachusetts. Yeah.
Okay.
In a little suburb.
Okay. And then, take us through, so you graduate school. What's your first job?
So I went out. When I was in college, I went to Ireland to study for a year. And that was kind of a life changer for me, that I just really realized that I wanted to travel and kind of see the world. And so when I got back, I decided, if I can't go to Europe to work, which at the time that I couldn't get a visa, let me go as far away as possible. I've always wanted to live in California. So a friend and we ventured out to California, and we just literally showed up with no clue what we were going to do. I did not have any skills, but the guy at the temporary employment office liked me, and he felt badly when I started crying. So he ended up placing me in a job, which then led me to a couple different things, and then led me into PR and publicity in television movies. And that was a really fun experience.
Wow. Okay. So were you doing writing, or were you doing outreach to press?
No, I mean, it was a very small agency. I mean, I was taking writing classes at UCLA, for journalism and publicity and everything. So I was really kind of getting on that track. There's a lot of outreach. There was a lot of communications, working with the production company, working with the networks. So it was a really small company. So it was really literally like the president and me. So I ended up getting thrown into these very, very grown-up situations at 23 years old. He would be traveling. I would be sitting at a meeting table with literally all the EVPs of NBC and the president of the production company. And I just try to, hold my ground best I could. But I ended up working with a lot of really great people who always had my back. But, I just always kind of got thrown into things and figured out how to swim, I guess.
Okay. So I'm already seeing a theme emerging. So, from there, tell us what you did next.
So then I decided I wanted to move back to the East Coast, but I wasn't ready to kind of go back to Massachusetts. So where else does one go but New York City? And talk about a complete culture change. That was just unbelievable. And I got to New York City and I was like so intimidated. I mean, everybody walking down the street, I'm like, they have got it together. They have got it. In California, like no one had it together. And I felt like, good. I'm like, I got this going on. And then you get to New York City and everybody is like tight and right and walking down that street, and they have a purpose and they know what they're doing and it's all happening. And I was like, I don't know, I can't do it. But I ended up getting into digital sales and marketing. So that was kind of it was a segue, and I felt like I was doing so much, with the publicity, it is sales, it is marketing, it is positioning. And so it was just a little bit of a segue, and digital was blowing up at the time. So I ended up working for Hearst Publications then. And I didn't have to cry for that interview. So that worked out. And that ended up keeping me in New York for about 6 years. And it was really good, but I wasn't getting the creative outlet that I wanted. So I actually ended up starting to study at the New School and studying interior design. And I started taking painting classes. I just wasn't getting the complete creative outlet that I needed. So I just started tapping into that in New York. Yeah, it was, but it was a great job. And again, it was like, you're learning sales, you're learning communication. We were putting together these amazing packages, and so there's marketing and positioning, and there was creativity, but it wasn't as deep as I kind of needed.
As you'd wanted it. But I think you're also touching on something that I know I've experienced myself, and many people I talk to have found too, that like, you can enjoy your day job, but finding another outlet, whether it's complementary or have nothing to do. I sang in a gospel choir for 15 years, which had nothing. Yeah. Which had nothing to do with advertising and media. But yet in many ways it did, right? You just learn, because you're learning about people, and you're learning about energy, and you're learning about audience and stage, right? So it kind of sounds like it's the same thing. Like, you're starting to learn about other areas because you're spending time going to school and learning different things that are adjacent to your craft.
I've always been a bit of a searcher and just trying to figure out, what it is I want to do. What are the kind of boxes I want to tick off? I want to feel fulfilled. And so I was doing all this networking and everything. And I just didn't know anybody in Boston. I had been gone for, 12, 13, 14 years. And when you think about college. So I was really starting from ground zero. So it was my relatives and old friends that were connecting me. And so I got connected to this woman, and I walked in, and they did like promos for movies. That was what their kind of agency did. And I walked in, and she started asking me about the movies I had produced and worked on and everything. And she was so uninterested in hiring me. And I just was so upset, and I was like, okay, just stay present. It's okay. You're in that situation. I just wanted to cry. I just wanted to sit in the office and cry and go, why don't you want to hire me? I can do this. At that point, she ended up getting an email during our meeting and was on the email, was taking it, took the email. And I was like, oh my God, not only is she just talking about the movies that she liked, but now she's taking emails. And I'm like, I gotta wrap this up, but like, she's in charge. I'm not really sure. And she's like, I just got an email that this agency is looking for a freelance PR person. They do a lot of events. I'm going to give your name. And I was like, and it was a great agency. And I love it. This is unbelievable. Again, staying in that moment and the next day, the owner of the agency called me, brought me in, hired me right off the bat. It was such a great match. And I go, listen, guys, I'm really good at planning events, which I really just had started. I'm not great at like writing and all that kind of stuff, but like I am your woman for planning events. And they're like, everybody says that in PR. Everybody comes in like, we want to do the parties. And so anyways, I ended up getting a huge event with them. And I produced it just on the seat of my pants. I didn't even know linen sizes. I don't even know how I did it. It was one of the most stressful, most unbelievable things. I ended up producing it. And I wasn't alone. There was a team. And we went through the war together. We produced this massive event. And one of the top event planners in Boston attended the event. said, who did this? And a friend of mine then connected him, and then he hired me over. And I ended up, that's how I ended up launching my event career. And then I worked for him for a couple years, and then I went out on my own.
What I think is also so fascinating about your personal story is you are doing, huge events for universities, celebrities, the business elite. I mean, these major affairs. And you really enjoyed it, right? It was stressful at times. You loved the creativity. I see where you're interior decorating, those classes back at the new school, where that all comes in back into event planning. And at a certain point, you made a decision, and not because you knew what was next, but you made the decision that, okay, I'm moving on.
So I had my own business for 2008, I went out on my own. So for a very long time. And yes, it was extremely successful. I had amazing clients. I traveled the world doing these fabulous events, and I was really good at it. It just came naturally to me. It was not difficult. It was not challenging. It was joyful. I had the best clients, which I felt that I picked them as much as they picked me. It was a lot, but event planning is extraordinarily stressful, and I mean, I think they do these lists, and it's like air traffic controllers, brain surgeons, event planners, just that level of detail and the level of expectation and everything. So it definitely took a toll on me many times, health-wise and exhaustion and all that kind of stuff. But I still loved it because it just came so naturally to me, and it did check off all the boxes. I was successful. It was super creative. I worked with amazing people. I worked with amazing vendors. I had these fabulous clients. Most of them became very good friends. And so it was a lot. And then COVID hit. And after all that work, when COVID hit, everything came to a halt. Now, I know it did for everybody.
Yeah.
It was shocking.
But the events industry really just stopped.
It completely stopped. And it was, I remember thinking, just give it 4 weeks, and so it came to such a crashing halt. And then people were kind of doing virtual things, and that was really challenging. And it just stopped. And all of a sudden it was like everything that I had invested in and done. And I know there are a lot of other event planners, and even, these top event planners, they talk about it, it was just like so abrupt. So that was a very challenging thing for me. So I felt that I immediately kind of lost everything that I had worked for. Even though clients would have loved to have, sure. It was beyond our control. It was
right. The marketplace conditions were of such. Sure.
Yeah. And so when that happened, and I think this happened obviously with a lot of people, I'm not saying I'm unique in this at all, but there was just a tremendous amount of reflection and saying, wow, I really put my heart, soul, body, exhaustion, health, everything into this. And like that, it was taken away. And so I started to lose a little bit of that love, that I had for event planning. And I started to actually get anxious about working in event planning again. It caused anxiety, which that was just never anything close to what I experienced. It was really quite joyful and exciting, and, it made me happy. And so again, I get to a reflection point, and I find Jill Griffin.
People, I did not pay her to say that.
And this is true. This is when I'm going to cry. It's true. It's true. I am going to cry. But you helped me see what I could be next. And that it was okay to be at this late stage of my career, which I've been working for now, 30 some odd years, Well, I guess not that long, but I felt like it. I just didn't do the math completely correctly. But anyways, almost 30 years. And, and that it's okay to feel this way and you still have something to give and you need to figure out what that is. I mean, you really did help me with that. It wasn't something that I felt comfortable because I reached out to you because I was in such anxiety about going back. And I'm like, this doesn't feel right. I need help. And so that is the truth. And then we really worked through it. And I give you credit. It's if I had this idea because it was a piece of clothing that I was always shopping for and I could not find. Right. And I was like, if I want something like this, other people have to want something like this. So I had this idea and you kind of challenged me. You're like, well, if you could do anything whatsoever. And I mean, and I was like, do I say it? Do I say it out loud? Do I say it out loud? And then I just said it out loud. And you're like, okay, I think that I like it. And tell me more, And then I ended up taking sewing lessons and playing with materials and all this kind of thing to see if this thing I had in my head could actually be real. And here we are.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. I mean, and I think it also, we want to just come back to your own resilience and your own strategy that, the world gave you circumstances and many others too, as you've acknowledged, but the world gave you circumstances in which there was nothing to do. Like, this is what's happening. We are in a global pandemic. So what am I going to do? And while that reflection point, there was probably some rest in dealing with the exhaustion. I think what you're also acknowledging is that when you started to listen to that voice inside you that says, yes, I really did like event planning, but wait a second, there's a lot of anxiety coming up here about the idea of going back to it. And then really listening to yourself and doing that reflection. Mm-hmm. What kind of process would you tell people you went through that maybe would help them if they're trying to think about what do they do next? And it doesn't mean that everybody is starting their own business. They might be moving from marketing to HR, or they might be moving from finance to legal, or making those changes. What were some of the things that you did in your reflection process that you would share with others?
Well, I think, first of all, it's very, it's none of anybody's business is what I have to say. So you don't have to go get validated.
This is me clapping. Yes, it is none of anyone's business.
Yeah. And so I think that that's a really big deal, because when you start telling people about change or all this other stuff, what ends up happening, this is just my humble opinion, I feel that you almost trigger fear in people. And so there's so many people that want to encourage you and support you, but they're like, oh, you don't do it. Don't do it. You've got a good thing. Right. thing. And I mean, for me, I've been very fortunate. I've been very, very successful. And it's like, I was living someone's dream, right? I was living my own dream, quite frankly, for a long time. Mm-hmm. And it's like, all of a sudden you come in, you're like, hey, and you say something and they're like, don't do it. You got it so good. Why would you ever give this up? It's going to come back. It's going to be better and all this kind of stuff. So I think it's not like completely keeping it to yourself, but it's don't share until you're ready to share. And don't expect any kind of outside validation from anybody else, because, and then there's a flip side to it is that, there's, envy is not the right word, because I don't think people are in touch with that. I think, people that you love have these reactions too, and they don't envy you, but there's this fear of change that overwhelms people. And then they can't, they don't want you to trip, right? They don't want you to fail. And so, and they also, if they can't do it themselves, they kind of don't want you to do it either, in a sense. And And so I would just say that. And then for me, I got quiet, and I ended up having an extraordinarily supportive family, which that's another thing besides Jill Griffin, I could not have done, because they gave me a moment and they gave me space. And they really helped me, take the time that I had a luxury of doing. And so that was really great. But I think it's, for me, in all these transitions that I've made, and you've heard a whole bunch of them, is that I really got quiet and I started thinking about not what I don't want, but what do I want? What is it that I want? And sometimes you do have to reflect on what's missing with that. But like, what is it that I want? And so you kind of write it all down and see what it looks like. I need help with that. Like I said, I worked with that career counselor years ago. I take classes. I'm now getting to a point where I can self-start that, but it took me a really long time. I needed professionals to say, write this down. And when you write this down, you're going to see a theme. Write this down. You're going to see these things that you want and all that stuff. And then I ended up talking to people who were doing what I wanted to do, privately. I taught, there's a couple people that I trusted, and I asked, do you know this? Do you know that? And then I started talking to people and getting the reality of what it is that I wanted to do, and getting some perspective and that kind of stuff, and spending time doing my own research and seeing what felt right. I'm older now, and it's like, I really am much more in tune with what feels when things start to feel right. So I think that that's something to pay attention to as well.
Yeah. So you touched on a couple of things that I just want to highlight. And one is for the people who have new babies or new puppies or new, small pets. You don't take that small child, that idea, that baby out into the world in its first couple of weeks. It needs to be protected, right? And it's a similar analogy to what you're saying, is that you and I talked about it, you had some ideas, but if you take that raw idea that's very unformed and very vulnerable and tell everyone, suddenly everyone, for the good and the bad, is going to be giving you their opinion. So I think that's really intuitive of you, Amy, that you really were selective as to who you were sharing your dreams with. And then the second part is that reflection time of, there's no way to put a timer on it. It could happen in a day. It could happen in an hour. It could happen in 6 months. Like, you just don't know. But if you keep showing up for yourself and you keep doing that reflection time, eventually whatever is right for you, those feelings are revealed, your own truth is revealed, and then you start getting like ideas of what it's going to be. So when we think then about the article of clothing, and therefore the clothing line that you have created, you took sewing classes, you started hand sewing them yourselves. Take us through that process of like why this particular style piece and underwear was so, not underwear, but undergarment.
Innerwear. So, it's funny actually talking about like, I love the analogy of the puppy. So, I started taking the sewing classes, and, I was just, the sewing teacher's like, do you have anything that you want to sew? I'm like, no, I just want to learn how to sew. And so I, went a couple
pillowcases.
Yeah, I know. I literally won. I mean, it was like I made pajama bottoms for my dad because he was visiting, and I was so proud of them. And so I was going like twice a week minimum, and it was probably like a month or 6 weeks in. And I said, I was like, oh, I kind of have this idea. And she's like, I've been waiting for you to tell me, because I could tell there was something you were going for here.
She knew it. I love it.
So it was like, I was figuring out this kind of stuff. And then during that process, is learning about fabrics and everything. So for what I ended up creating was, so when dressing in layers, and not like snow layers, but like dressing in layers is a very fashionable thing, right?
Snow layers.
It's not snow layers. But it's like when you look at the chic Parisians, and you don't know why they look so chic. It's because they're in layers. They're wearing different things. They have layers. And so I always dress that kind of way. And like literally like my favorite outfit in the entire world in fall, winter, and spring is leggings, the button down shirt hanging out, a sweater, a scarf, a necklace, the boots, that whole thing. And it just looks so good. But what happens is for me, I was in these shirts and the buttons were like popping through, or they were tenting the sweater, and the arms were like pulling, and I just was never comfortable. So I was always kind of doctoring my shirts. So I'd cut off the sleeves. I was like hand sewing or taping or safety pinning the buttons on the way down, whatever I had with me. And it was just uncomfortable. And so I was like, and then the other kind of look that I wore was a tank top layering, and I always layered. And it's like I'm 5'3", and it's like when you layer, you create dimension, and it just takes like a boring outfit from a sweater and pants, sweater and jeans, and then you layer it, and you're all of a sudden, oh, that's the little outfit you got going on there. It's not boring, and you've created that, like I said, that dimension. Which is kind of really what I did with event planning and design. It's like you create dimension, you use different fabrics, you use different colors, you bring these things together. And that is what layering does to an outfit, And so, anyways, I was like, there has to be something that's like nice and form fitting, and then has a long kind of tail. And it's just easy peasy, just easy peasy. And I could not find it anywhere. I mean, I searched and searched and searched. And so I was like, I feel like I could make this work. So anyways, that's what I started working on. And the first piece was the tank top, like a really nice cotton tank top that was a little bit longer, and then shirt tails. So basically, it's like it's form fitting, but it's like super soft bamboo cotton, which that was a whole nother process, is getting to the right fabrics and all that kind of stuff. It's not compression. It's just comfortable. And then the shirt tails are nice quality shirt tails, and then they hang out. So it's so comfortable. So that was the first version. And I ended up taking that out to test. And so I tested that with a lot of different people, and I got a ton of feedback, which was just amazing. Some of it was a little rough, but it all really helped to get to where we got to. And there were certain things like people have different, like with hips and this kind of stuff. So we created a ruching on the hips that is a really nice design element, but it's so functional. So you can pull the shirt down a little bit, you can pull it up. And so that's the first one. And then the second one is the tank with the tails and the yoke and the collar. So that can be, a more formal look. You have the collar popping out, but you still have that tails look. And then,
for anyone listening, we'll put links in the show notes.
But it's pulled together and everything, but it's a complete solution. So the third one, which I'll just say quickly, there's only 3 styles, is the tank with just the yoke and the collar. And, I had just sent out an email to, friends and family last week. And one of my old neighbors, literally, like, she could not even wait to call me. She said, I have had my favorite sweater that I've had for years. I can't figure out how to wear it. I'm always uncomfortable. I now have the solution to wear this. I am completely obsessed. And she got the Maeve, and she had it tucked in, and she's, sending me pictures, and she's like, this is what I've been waiting for. I'm completely obsessed. Thank you so much. And I'm like, I know, I've been waiting for this too. So anyways, I think it's a little hard. I don't really have the kind of elevator pitch. It's a little hard to describe, but I think once you see it, you're like, oh my God, now I get this. Like I need it. It's a wardrobe staple. It just simplifies your life,
Totally. Yeah. Okay. So let's get into the part of like, in order to scale a business, you have to scale your brain. And you dealt with materials, vendors, US based vendors, international vendors. I think you ultimately decided to do it locally in the US, if I recall.
Yeah.
Everything's
Making it here was important to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of these different pieces, I mean, like finding manufacturing houses, finding, someone who can help you make the prototypes, the logoing, all these aspects. There's so many pieces of this. So how did you process and keep your mind clear as you're building what's next for you?
Well, yeah, as you said, every single aspect of what I've done in the last year and a half has been completely new. Every single aspect. To find labels, every single thing has been, what's that? The vendors alone, like reliable vendors that, that was, but I joined a membership club
like
based out in New York that was able to connect me to a bunch of different manufacturers. And then I figured that I learned from there and there. I think it's just constantly accepting that you don't know anything. And I'm not kidding with that. Right. I really...
but you have the resilience and the resourcefulness to pause and figure it out.
And the determination. I think, that is like, once I got the feedback from kind of my hand-sewn things, and I got really positive feedback and a lot of excitement, and I saw that actually this could work and that people would be excited about it, then I became determined. I was really kind of open, and exploring and hoping, and I kept taking the actions. But then once I got the feedback, I was like, okay, this is a go. This is really, I can do this. And I was motivated, and to stay determined. I mean, listen, it's not easy when you're, it's just I learned that there's completely like huge industries within industries that I've never even known in my entire life, So it's all that. And so, yeah, it is, it's staying determined, but I think it's also, and I mean, obviously the amazing mindset things that you've taught me is, literally when you start to get overwhelmed, depressed, or doubting, you just stop, breathe. And one of the things that I constantly do, which is from one of your toolkits, or I've taken all these things, is I just stop and I think, what if this is the best thing that could happen today for you? Like, you get frustrated with a vendor and you're like trying to force it, but like, what if that's the best thing that ever happened was them doing something really bad, and now and that's the best thing that could happen to you. So I just try to do that, and then breathe, and also, doing like the writing things down and all that kind of stuff, and just taking the moments to just stop. I mean, I really have done that a lot.
Yeah.
Especially when you're learning. And I mean, and then don't even get me going on the tech part of all these things. And
right, that Amy's learned how to write code.
I mean, literally, I was writing code at one point.
Right, but I think that's the reality of, like, there's so much culture out there in Instagram and TikTok about, the glamour of being an entrepreneur and a small business owner. And there's no doubt a ton of rewards. But if you think it is easy or it's going to be easy, you've been misinformed. I mean, every single aspect. If Amy's not showing up in her business, no one's showing up in her business. At some point, yes, she will have employees, and she will have, a scalable business that, other people are also supporting her. But in the early stages of building it, managing your mind so that you can scale this is essential part. And knowing that it's going to be hard. It doesn't have to be hustle and sweat. But that doesn't equate for not working long hours. I just mean it doesn't have to feel graspy and anxious. There's still long hours. There's still that kind of hustle.
Yeah. And what would take someone 15 minutes most likely is going to take me 3 hours, because I'm literally learning it. for the first time, right. And so it's like, I think there's just a level of determination, and also there's a level of acceptance. And then you also, you need help, right? You need vendors, you need help. There's certain things that you do need help for, but at the end of the day, you are managing every single aspect. I am printing every label. I am stuffing every bag. I did every sample. I mean, it's, everything. You do everything. I'm writing the newsletters. I mean, but I have help, it's like, but I have like, amazing marketing friends that I'll like, can you just look at this, yourself included in these kind of things? And I need feedback from people that I trust, and then you get that, but you are doing every single tiny little thing yourself. But it takes a village. It takes a village. And again, like I have just the most amazing network of amazing humans that have jumped in to help me. And I just feel very, very lucky about that too.
Amy, it is such a pleasure to have you and to get to share in your story and tell everyone about the amazing work you're doing. So thank you. Thank you for being an example of what's possible.
Thank you, Jill. And thank you, because I wouldn't be here without you.
All right, my friend. I'll see you soon.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Career Refresh podcast. If you're enjoying this and you want more information, go to my website, jillgriffincoaching.com. There you can find information on how to work with me one-on-one, or my group programs, or even bring me into your workplace. I'll put the link to my website in the show notes. But hey, listen, before you go, do me a favor, rate and review this podcast, because it definitely helps me get the word out to people everywhere so that they can also thrive in the workplace. All right, friends, I appreciate you. I'll see you soon.